Hello everyone, Michael Farrington here. We are going to get started. Salesforce Admin Hack Series continues. We're talking about the case object. Cases are kind of near and dear to my heart. I think throughout all of my various hats I've worn in the Salesforce realm, I've been using cases in one form or another. And I remember I used to manage cases whenever management would want like an update on something that I was working on. I tell them, hey, get off my case. Yeah, that's always open with a strong joke. That's what I always said. So, but I wouldn't make that joke at work. It never went over very well. So, thank you for joining us. Some housekeeping items is that the questions can be asked in the control panel on the right. And you basically ask away. You can ask at any time in that little, it's like a little chat box you can submit questions in, and we'll get to those whenever we can. I think while we're presenting, we'll monitor as best we can, but for the most part, we're going to save answering those questions for the end of the presentation. And another housekeeping item is that you should join the conversation on Twitter, the hashtag #SFHacks. And you can talk to Jarrod and myself. We've got our Twitter handles there. And also give a shout out to RingLead and Appirio for helping the sponsor and put on this awesome webinar. And I will see you definitely on Twitter, hopefully. So my name is Michael Farrington, the Chief Product Officer of RingLead and the founder of Candor, which is another awesome app exchange company. And I'm a Salesforce MVP. I do have some certifications. I am looking forward to speaking at Dreamforce for, I think it's the 12th, 13th, and 14th time this year at Dreamforce. So also the Las Vegas Salesforce User Group leader. So definitely very enthusiastic about the community, and I'm enthusiastic about my company. So I work for RingLead, and just always in these webinars want to give a shout out to RingLead and my crew for putting up with me spending time on putting webinars out like this out. Sometimes the content has very little to do with what RingLead does, and yet they're cool enough to let me use company time and go and present this stuff, because that's just kind of like what MVPs do. That's what we love to do, and I'm just happy to put these on, and RingLead allows me to do that. So just a quick word about them is that I think everybody realizes that everybody knows RingLead as the duplicate removal and prevention company. And we've got some really cool applications there. Of course, I'm biased because some of them I helped personally design and develop. But some cool duplicate solutions. But we're branching out, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because it's really not the topic of this webinar. But if you want to know more about how we're now tackling all these awesome adjacent areas of duplicate removal for data quality, such as normalization and data enrichment, you should stop by and talk to us at Dreamforce. Okay, let's get right into it. So the format, or the agenda, if you will, is going to be, I'm going to present a few hacks. I'm going to pass it over to my awesome co-speaker, and he's going to present a few hacks, and then we're going to do some Q&A. So let's get right into it. The first hack, we've got it basically explained here, and please forgive me for not expanding my slide deck to like full screen, but we're going to be going back and forth between slides and like live demos, and this just kind of makes it easier if I'm not in complete full screen mode. So please forgive me for that. The case comment tracking fields. Okay, so the objective here would be to store important dates such as first comment date and last comment date. And I mean that's the objective, but it's actually more of like a couple examples, right? Is that sometimes you want to know more about, okay, what's the activity going on this case in terms of comments. And the secret here is that not many people know. I mean, I knew, but I've never really leveraged it until just recently it was brought to my attention how cool it can be. You can create workflow on the case comment object, and then I'll also show really quickly, like you can also use the email message object, which is awesome, especially when you want to track activity on cases. Comments and email messages a lot of times is the majority of your conversation. So A quick shout out to Jason Paquette, another fellow MVP. You can follow him at Paquette Jason, or go use the SF Hacks hashtag and give Jason a shout out yourself. He's the one who just showed me these really cool examples, and this is kind of one example that I more or less stole from him. I'm going to flip over and show you that right now. So if I go to my Salesforce org, I'm going to go into my setup, and so I'm in my setup now, and I'm basically going to just go to create workflow and check out my workflow rules. And if you've been attending all my other sessions, all my various webinars over time, you're familiar with some of these workflows that I've showed already, but the latest one is down here. So the update last comment date. And what this is going to do, what I've set this up to do is, I guess before I created this workflow rule, I created a date time field, and it was just called last comment date. And what this is going to do is every time there's a comment, it's going to go put that time, the now time, it's going to put in that field. So that field is always going to reflect either just, it'll be empty if there's never been a comment, or it's going to have a date in there. And, it's pretty simple to do that. You're basically just, again, choosing case comment as your object. I mean, that's like the whole secret here, is that you should definitely play around with this and figure out how you can utilize this. But workflow on the case comment object, and in this case, I'm just saying every single, I just put rule criteria is true, so that's just always firing. You could put in criteria there of okay, who's doing the commenting? You could get more advanced, but I'm just saying, okay, just any comment at all is good for me, and I'm going to update this last comment date. And so that's what's going on now. And I'm not quite going to demo that one yet because it's closely related to the next hack that I'm going to show, and so I want to wait a second to actually do the demo. And instead, real quickly, I just wanted to show you that you can also do workflow on incoming emails, which is, again, it's a similar concept where, in this case, here I can even, let me edit, might be easier to look at, but if on the object, we're again running workflow on email message, and down here, we could put in criteria of for example, the from address. And let me click on this because I just want you to see all the cool options you have here. In this case, I might want to filter and say, okay, I only want this workflow rule to run if the from address contains my company domain, so that I know that it's somebody internal, right? So that's basically like saying, okay, tell me the last time that somebody in our company emailed this person. And that's definitely an important, that might be a more important thing to store, is okay, not just when's the last comment or when's the last email, but when's the last email that we sent to them. And so I could do that, and then I could create a workflow rule for that and do any number of things, right? Like update a field, update some sort of a status, maybe set it to critical if there's hasn't been an email in a certain amount of time, that sort of thing. So that's the secret there. Let me flip back to the slide deck real quick. That's the secret there. I definitely encourage you to check out those kind of workflows. And the next hack is it's actually an old school hack is what this is. And it's basically using images in a formula field. And it's so old school that I think a lot of times I just assume that everyone knows about this hack. But it was actually brought up to me, it was mentioned by Amber Neal, who you can also mention on Twitter, Amber9904, and give her a shout out. But she brought this to my attention, and then I thought to myself, well, yeah, I know it because I've been doing Salesforce for almost a decade, but there's a lot of new admins out there who might not know about it. And secondly, there's some stuff that even if you know about, how to make an image field in your formula, I wanted to share this. Actually, sorry about that. I actually wanted to copy this. Let me flip over to my, I'm going to hack my own slide deck. I'm going to copy this URL real quick because I want to actually show you guys what this is, and we'll post this in the webinar afterwards, so you don't have to try and write this down or anything like that. But Okay, but I dug up, there was a couple of them, but I dug up this blog post. So a shout out to whoever manages SalesforceFast.com. Actually, there might be his name down here. So how about this? There we go. So John Weston Haver, this is your shout out. So he actually posted this this little chart. It's helpful, and it shows you a lot of like what Salesforce calls sample images, and you can use those in your formula fields. And these are all the names of these images. And so once you have all these cool images, like these stars and the flags and the lights and all that, then what I can do is I can go over and say customize my case object. And I'm going to create a field. I've already created a field. I'm calling it neglect. And this field is, it's a bit of a twist on that old school formula that I was talking about. But basically it's going to utilize that field that I created in the last hack. So you can see that like if gets a little bit complicated here, but if the last comment was posted like more than 2 days ago, is basically what this line says, or if there's never been a comment, then we're raising the flag and we want to make it red. Otherwise, if maybe in the last day there just hasn't been a comment, then we want to raise a yellow flag, and then otherwise it's just going to be blank. So which blank is good, means that there's no flag raised. And so if we combine that with that field that we were talking about just a second ago, what we get is if I go to my cases, you'll see that there's a case here where somebody submitted a case and they said, I have no clue, email me with answers. Excuse me, email me with answers. And if somebody from the web is submitting this, I might come down here and say, okay, internally, whatever, need to contact this guy. And what's going to happen is when I save this, you're going to notice that my little neglect flag had turned from red to basically disappeared. And you can also see that now the last comment is reflecting, my date and time and my time zone here. So if I went to like my little list now of cases, you can see now that like you can include a flag as a column in your views even, and that one that I just commented on doesn't have a flag, but all the rest of them do. So it means that I have to go and I've got some work to do in getting back to these people, or at least commenting internally. So that is our second hack. Our third hack I really like a lot. I think it's cool, and it's actually one that's very helpful for me personally. So send email to foreign web submitter. That's what I originally am titling this. And to break that down, what that really means is like sometimes when if you're using web to case and people go and they fill out your form, whatever form, the web to case form you have, they fill it out. It's going to automatically put their information into that, web submitter or web name, web email. It's got fields for that, special fields for that. And Salesforce is smart enough where it's going to take the email address and it's going to go and look for existing accounts and contacts. And if it finds one, a contact with the matching email address, it's going to associate it with that contact. And that's why sometimes it's very tidy. You have a nice lookup relationship there to the contact and the account, and it's done automatically. But this is for times when that might not happen. So in other words, somebody submits your a case web to case form and they're not in your database already. Well, then sending them an email, like using the send email button, is kind of annoying because you click the email and it's not addressed to anybody. And then you try to look up that person and they're not there because they're either not in your database or maybe they're a lead but they're not a contact. And so it's the standard form is not allowing you to look them up. So the secret here is twofold. First, you don't have to have anyone in the to section. Like when you click send an email and it says to, you have to look somebody up. You can actually leave that blank, believe it or not. It's just like a regular email. Like I don't know if you've ever done that in your regular email box, but you can do it there too if you didn't know. And then basically you can put any email address you want. So that's the second part. that people don't realize is that you can put any address you want. Like you could go and read the help files, and they'll explain to you that you can just put any email address in the additional to box, and just separate them by commas or like new lines or semicolons, and it'll get to them. And so we're leveraging both of those facts, and we created a formula field. Like Jarrod and I actually worked together on this cool formula field that will detect, like if it's related to a contact, it will send the email, address it to the contact, and if not, it'll use a sneaky little workaround so that you can still send them an email. And so let's do the demo of this. And so we've got the code there that, again, we'll share that in our summary blog post where we have the recording and the closing notes and all that on the RingLead.com blog. We'll share that formula with you. But I did want to show you. Let's go back to my example. So this is this is an actual lead that I created from the web, and you can see here that it's got the web email and the web name and all that, but it doesn't have see up here, contact and account are not looked up, and the reason is because I don't have a guy who's called Mad Dude and mad@dude.com. So this guy is obviously mad, and he has no clue. He wants me to email him with answers, and so we could come down here and say send an email, and what that'll do is bring me to this screen, and like I said, this is just the demo of the frustrating point where you get here and there's nothing in the to, and if I look up, all it will allow me to do is look up contacts. So we don't want to do that. We're going to go back, and I've got this link here, and it uses that formula that I was just showing you on the slide, and this formula is really send an email. So if I really want to send it, I'm going to click that, and here's what happens. It just basically leaves to blank because we don't have a contact, and it's just going to put that email address down here in additional to. And so I could come down here and I could type whatever I want. I could type my little message, and I could send that. So it's just kind of like a clever little way that I don't think a lot of people realize that they might. For a while, I embarrassingly didn't know about this, and I would flip over to my own personal email, and I'd send it from there, and then maybe attach it later on using some tool or something like that. And so that's kind of like a handy one. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to a real expert. So we have Jarrod Kingston, business analyst at Appirio. He's triple certified. He is now a Salesforce MVP. So congrats, a round of applause to Jarrod for just being named Salesforce MVP. And I'm expecting great things from this young gentleman in terms of webinars like this and the Dreamforce session that we're putting on, and he's just a really well-versed young man. So we're happy to have him. So Jarrod, if you could say hello to the world and
hey everybody.
Tell us a little bit about Appirio. Actually, let me make you the presenter.
Okay.
And that would be more efficient. Okay, you should be the presenter.
All right, so
Perfect.
I should be able to see my screen. All right, cool. Well, happy to be back on the webinar series with everybody. Just real quick, I want to tell you about Appirio if you haven't heard of us before. At Appirio, we help businesses reimagine the way they do business using cloud technology. So we have partners such as Salesforce, Google, Workday, Cornerstone, on demand. And we pair that with our traditional consulting approach, along with crowdsourced developers. So we have cloud spokes, and we also have a newly acquired Topcoder. So between those two, we help get to a reimagined business. And then there's some customers we've worked with. So feel free to check us out at appirio.com. But let's go ahead and get into the first hack I have to show you here. So, all right. So this one here, we're going to kind of play off of Michael's hack that he showed with the email link, and we're going to add on to that a little bit. So we're calling this one quick email links. So this one here, our objective is we want to give a service agent the ability to quickly send those commonly used email responses to a case contact. So the example is they just need to send a solution tied to a case, or maybe a case check-in using standard email templates. And the shout out on this one goes to and also a newly minted MVP, Bill Greenhaw. So thanks to Bill for this hack. So let's go ahead and jump over to the demo here. All right. So essentially what we have here is, first I'll show it to you, and then we'll show you the link on the back end. So essentially what we have here is we have some custom links here, and what I've done is I went ahead and created 3 different types of links. So first one here is if we have a standard solution template that just picks whatever solution is tied to the case, we can click email solution, and what that will do is it will utilize part of Michael's hack, and then adds on the template ID that we have preset within the button. And you can see here, because I have a contact, it is showing them in the to field, and then you can see here it just automatically fills in my template for me. So that way I don't have to go down, click send an email, select template. It just does it all for me. If we go back, you can see here again, I just have a different flavor on that button and choosing a different template. So again, I can choose, have these for multiple templates. And then I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool? Michael and I were thinking, wouldn't it be cool if you had almost a more dynamic button, in that you could base it upon the type of the case or the product related to the case, and it automatically chose a specific template based upon whatever that value is. And so that's where we get into this button, or this link here. And it actually, if it's, depending on the type here, and I only did 2 types, it will choose a different template. So for mechanical, if I choose email type info, it chooses this case check-in. And I'll show you if I come up here, and we'll just quickly change this to electrical. Save. And then this one will now choose a different template. This escalated. So I just showed you that it's choosing a different template based upon that type field. And you could obviously do that with any other of the fields there. So let's jump over and take a quick look at these. So I'll show you the case check-in and the solution are essentially the same. So I'll just show one of these real quick. So essentially, what you can see here is when you go back and look at the code for Michael's button, all I'm doing is adding an additional parameter into this string here, and it's this template ID equals, and then you just paste in the ID of the email template. And so that's all you're doing for the one where you're saying, hey, I want this specific template. Now if we move to the more dynamic button, or link I should say, this one is getting a little bit more complex, and it's just adding, so we still add the template ID, right? But what we're adding is we're actually adding this case statement in here that essentially says, hey, if the type is mechanical, do this ID. If it's electrical, do this ID. Or, if it's none of those, which in your case you would have something selected, just leave it blank. But essentially it's just using that case statement feature that, and then choosing the template. So that's that hack. Hopefully that provides some value, but I think that one's a pretty cool one there. Let's move to the next hack here. All right, so this one here is what we call case reopen count. So the objective of this one is to track how many times a case has been reopened by the customer. This can help with, helps track the service team efficiency. And the example I put there is, hey, maybe a service manager wants to track the average amount of times cases are reopened. And the shout out to this one is a coworker of mine, Joshua Titus, gave me this example. So this one's pretty basic, and it's just using some workflow and a custom field. So essentially, the first thing you'll want to do is you create a custom field on the case. Just call it whatever, reopen count is what I called it. we're going to default it to 0, and it's just a number field. And basically, it's going to be read-only on the page layout, but we will have a workflow rule that does the counting for us. So it's basically saying, hey, when it's created and every time it's edited, and then what I've done here is used a formula within the workflow rule that just essentially looks at, hey, if it changes from being closed to any of these values, then what I want to do is I want to add 1. You can see here it uses this prior value function and says, hey, add 1 onto the prior value of whatever was in this field. So let's see this one in action. So we'll go to this case over here. And you can see here, this one has already been reopened 2 times, but let's go ahead and close the case just to show you how this works. So we'll close it. I'll click Save. So it's gone closed, and let's just say, for example's sake, it's been reopened. So we'll go change the status back to working, and what we should see is now this reopen count gets ticked up to 3. So it's just a simple way for you to, if you need to track that, you can easily just continue to count that up. So cool little hack there. All right. So let's move to the last hack I have to show you, and this one I think is really cool. We call it the Take Ownership button, or if you want to get crazy, you can call it the Steel Case, whatever suits you. The essential objective here, though, with this one is we're going to give the service agent an easy way to take ownership of the case. So, we have the standard functionality of accept, the accept button on the list views that you can use within a case queue, but this one actually allows you to do it right on the case. So the example here is a service agent is working a queue. It needs to quickly take ownership of the case. The shout out on this one, another one to Jason Paquette. He's rocking it today. Great hack here. So, and let's jump over and take a look at this. So, let's go back to this case here, and you can see here that it's owned by a case in a case queue. And what I want to just mention on this one is, and I'll include this. We'll include this within our post with all the code and stuff. But this one here, you can go just with the button with no rules around it, or what I decided to do is kind of expand upon the button and add in some a custom field and a validation rule to basically make sure that someone can't take a case from another person. They can only take it from a queue. So we'll show you that when we get into the setup. But essentially here, I'm going to show you 2 variations of the button. So we have a simple variation, which is just a URL hack. And essentially what that does is, this is the Steel Case button, is I click Steel Case, and, oh, whoops, I need to save my change, apparently. That was we call that a demo fail. Oh, yeah, let's try that again. Apparently I missed that, but essentially what, I may have messed up my button there. Essentially what happens is it will automatically change the case over. The other button here is more of a JavaScript button, so it's a little bit more complex, and it also plays off the validation rule as well. The Steel Case here, it will do the same thing. It'll just take you to the ownership screen and do it there. Let's show this here. So we'll change this back to the cases queue real quick, and then what we're going to do here is click Take Ownership, and you can see there is it just refreshes the screen and does the same thing. But again, that one's a little bit more complex because it's JavaScript. But let's get into the setup here. So utilizing the validation rule, essentially, and for time's sake, I'm not going to not going to show that, but you can see here we've got a checkbox here that is queue owned, and then we also have an ownership type a formula field that we're using that essentially just looks at the owner field and looks at the ID, the first 3 characters of the ID, so and tells us whether it's a user or a queue. And then we have the validation role here that just basically utilizes those fields to say, hey, if it's changing in this way and the ownership is a user, then don't let it happen. Let's get over to the buttons here. And you can see here that, so for our detail button here, essentially just passing in these different parameters here. So it's passing in the new owner and the ID, user ID, you can see that. So, and we'll make sure that that is working properly once we put it in there, put it in the post. And then the just to show the JavaScript one here, the take case ownership, you can see here that essentially, again, it's doing the very same thing as the URL hack, but it'll show you an error message here as a pop-up if the case is owned by another user. So that is the I believe it's that is the last hack. I'll go ahead and say that Michael had said it before. We're doing a Dreamforce session on top 10 Salesforce admin hacks. So come check us out if you're going to Dreamforce Tuesday, November 19th from 3:30 to 4:30 at the Westin St. Francis Grand Ballroom. So we'll be there. Michael will be there in his white jacket, I'm sure. And we'd love to see you.
Yeah, for sure. That's and the basis for this this session are these webinars, and basically what we're doing is we're taking the top 10. I mean, now we've had a handful of these. We've had the account object, opportunity object, lead object, case object. We're working on another one for you, probably between now and Dreamforce, and then we're basically picking the top 10 hacks, but actually it's more like the top, probably maybe like the top 8 hacks from our webinars, and then 2 of the hacks are going to be brand new, and so yeah, it'll just be a variety of all the objects, just the best of the best. So we definitely recommend you come out there, unless if you've been religiously following our webinars or watching the recordings, then I will understand. I will not be hurt if you go and go to another session, because there are so many good sessions out there. But we'll be there Tuesday, 3:30. And one more quick reminder is that we also have we're also going to have a presence there in the expo hall. So come see the RingLead booth. I'm going to spend I think last year I was speaking in just way too many sessions, and this year I've kind of cut that in half. And so I'm going to spend some more time at the booth there. So definitely come and hang out with me. And then Appirio, of course, is going to have a booth. There's also in the West 507. If you didn't know, there are 2 expo halls this year at Dreamforce. One in Moscone North and one in Moscone West. So come visit us in the North End at RingLead, and come visit Appirio on the West End. And with that, let me put up all of our information. I think we had a question earlier come in about social media, so here's pretty much everything you need to know about getting in touch with us. You can give us a shout. Some of you already are online talking about prior value formulas. There was a link that was shared that had some links to those, or the addresses for more of those images that Salesforce puts up as samples that you can use in your formulas. So get in on that conversation, and you can mention RingLead and Appirio as well, or you can pick your poison. You can get in touch with us at any of the areas or the faces that you see here. And with that, let's take a look and see. Please submit your questions through the little chat window that's in the control panel, and we would be happy to answer them. I have actually plenty of time. I was worried that we were going to run over because we had so much cool stuff, but we did good on time, so we have plenty of time for Q&A. And I'm going to start kind of looking through here, and Jarrod, if you see any that you can answer, go ahead. Okay, I'll take the first one. There was one that said, can you run a report on the neglect field to show how many are read? And that's a good question. I'm not sure if you could filter on it, to be honest with you. You could definitely sort. Jarrod, do you offhand know the answer to that? Like like you can obviously include it as a column. Like if you have an image formula field, you can include it as a column in your report. But I'm not sure if you could go in there and say, okay, like what would you put in the criteria to say, if this field equals red. Obviously the word red's not going to have any meaning, but there might be a way to do that.
Yeah, actually Bill posted in there, you may be able to look for null if you're wanting to filter on it. The only other suggestion I would have is you could try sorting on that field, and it should sort by the have a different flag.
Yeah, I'm gonna we can continue. Actually, I'm gonna pull this into another window and do a little bit of experimentation while we talk. I'm gonna see if I can come up with an answer for that one.
There's a question here from Boris on does it matter if you use custom links or buttons? Is it essentially the exact same thing? I mean, it really is essentially the same. We just use the link since we have so many. It makes it a little bit more user friendly to have them down there than the custom links. But if you had one dynamic button per se, or link, you could put it there. So.
I lost my mouse for a second there. Any other questions we can get on there? Yeah, that's a good idea. We have there's a question there like, can we include the workflow rules? And basically what we do afterwards is I'm going to go ahead and take the recording of this session. I'm going to upload it to YouTube. And then we take that and we embed it into a blog post. So you can go, as you see on the screen here, ringlead.com/YouTube. That's kind of like a shortcut to get to our YouTube page. You could also go directly there by saying youtube.com/ringleadinc. But anyway, you get to our YouTube channel, you could see it there, or you can just wait and you'll see it on we'll post a blog entry at ringlead.com. You just click on the blogs tab, and you'll see a blog come up, and it'll basically have anything that we've shared, like in the slides that you might want to copy and paste, or in your case, I guess to see the workflow again, you could always kind of like pause the video. But anything that we want to give you easy access to, especially the stuff that you want to cut and paste, like formulas, we're going to include right in that blog post. It's kind of like a summary of everything. So. Still messing around with this. Okay. So we have we had a clue submitted about how to filter on flags. I feel like a flag. I can't put a filter on it. Okay, so bear with me. If Jarrod, if you see any questions in there, please feel free to answer those, because it's just going to take me another second to experiment on this filter, and then I can show it to everyone. Okay. Sorry for the radio silence there. It took a second to get that, but okay. So thank you for those of you on Twitter and through the question box who have helped me out on this one. So we have basically this was what I put in here, just kind of the easiest way to do it, but it's really kind of like based on your whatever the image name is, because this this field is really going to show you something like let me see if I can copy the image URL. Like if I were to actually, yeah, so that you can see that the image URL is going to be included in there. It's actually going to be more of when it's displayed, I think the formula field actually produces the HTML that would display an image. But for sure, in that HTML is going to be the name of the file, so the name of the picture. So you could be more specific and say, I could have said flag_red, or in my case, because I know that it's red is going to be unique enough to identify, I could say neglect contains red, and it just shows me those 4, and you can see just to see that I'm not pulling your chain. If I remove that, then you see the extra record gets added here that doesn't have a flag. So that was a good question. Let me continue scanning here. We have some time. Let me make sure that there are no other questions that I can answer. There was, I think I answered this, but there was a question, where can I find a copy of the other hack webinars we've hosted? And then for sure that's on our, let me bring it back up, I guess. Let me bring up our social media again. So you could use this shortcut to get to our YouTube channel, or you could actually just go to RingLead.com. So go to RingLead.com and then click on blogs. You could even go to RingLead.com and search for the word hacks. I do that sometimes when I want to review our old hacks. But there are other webinars too. We have a data rehab is a series that we have going on right now, and so some great webinars there too. So I would probably say the best place might be either just to surf around the blog, click on the blog tab when you go to RingLead.com, or go to our YouTube page. Either one.
And Michael, I'll go back and mention that that steel case button, you just need to ask Salesforce to turn on that auto save by URL, as it's I forgot that it's turned off by default. So my new dev org didn't have it turned on, so that's why it wasn't working.
There was a question here actually. Somebody was looking for help with a trigger. Unfortunately, this is a admin hack session, so we try to stay away from code. And I think both of us, we do know how to code, but we for the sake of this topic, we want to be true to our audience, and we want to try to use as little code as possible. There are a few hacks we put out that have a little bit of code, Jarrod showed a little bit of JavaScript, and the idea there is that it's very simple example, and it's basically okay, we're going to give you that code as a starting point and make it really easy for you, anyone who's even a non-coder to go in there and modify it a little bit to to suit their needs, or just copy it directly. If it's something that doesn't need really any customization, then we'll just give it to you. So it's kind of like copy and paste kind of a thing. And yeah, so that the trigger is a good question. You might be able to post that on the developer message boards, and people might be able to help kind of point you in the right direction. Or if you were looking for somebody actually to do the work, I'm sure you can definitely find that too. Or probably the best recommendation I can give you on that is if you need a trigger written, you should call Appirio. So. Oh yeah, another good point. That was, in our case, we have certain criteria that we're creating the flag on. So like, you're saying like if X is true, then display this image. Well, then obviously it's a good point. You could go and like submit, you could go and create a filter on your report that just says that has the same criteria, right? That basically just says, okay, if the last comment date, in my case, I'm using last comment date. You say if last comment date is greater than 2 days ago, then include it in this report. And then you could schedule that report to be run, and you could like, shake your finger at the people who are not commenting on their cases. And
one question here from Sandrine on just how do, if people have extra questions or anything, I would say the Salesforce Success community is a great place to start with that. I mean, you can certainly, hit us up on Twitter, but there's more than just two of us out there on the community, and a lot of great guys out there, guys and gals answering questions and helping out. So just a quick plug for that, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I mean, definitely instead of asking, I like to think I know some stuff, but for sure, if you go to like the answers community, you're going to get, not only a more timely response, but then you're also going to get just like a swarm of people kind of responding to you. So I would recommend that. I mean, if you have a specific question, like about the webinars or companies or anything like that, you can email me. It's just my first initial M and my last name, Farrington, Farrington, at RingLead.com. And, that would, I could respond back on any questions like that. And I think that looks like that's about it. Actually, I think now that I think of it, your confirmation email may have come from me. So you could, because I think a couple of people responded back to that, and it came to my inbox. So I'm not sure how we have it set up now, but that might be the case also. So you might already have my email address. And yeah, that looks like it. A lot of great feedback. Appreciate it. And yeah, we got through all the questions that we're able to answer, and we still have time left over. So how about that? So Jarrod, thank you so much for being here. These are awesome hacks you've shared. Another quick shout out to everybody who contributed to hacks. I know I gave them a shout out on Twitter, but I can't thank them enough. And Jarrod, any closing thoughts?
No, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, cheers. And everybody, I'll hopefully see you guys at Dreamforce, and or even better, we might talk to you on another one of these webinars between now and then. So look forward to that. All right, everyone, have a good day. Thanks a lot.